The success of the 2024 Rudolph Limited made a fact very apparent to a lot of us at Largo Central Railroad. Steam can draw a crowd.
Oh my god, that is so beautiful.
2025 was going to be bigger, though, as we had rostered more running days this year, which meant we would be hauling more passengers than ever. So, naturally, a steam locomotive would be rostered for the occasion, right? To answer that question, yes, we did have a steam locomotive for the job. But it's not the steamer from last year. There was one snag to this, though. The locomotive we had needed some work. So join me and the Largo Steam Committee in this multi-part series of videos as we go through what went into getting this engine up and running once more. After the winter meets have went and gone, Santino inaugurated a steam committee based around the operation and care of steam locomotives at Largo Central Railroad. This was something he had been trying to get off the ground for quite a while, even before I was a member of the club. Our initial goal at the start was to get the 040 Baldwin switcher, commonly nicknamed Rusty by the club members, up and operational. However, this would be a long job, as there were a number of items the switcher needed replacing in order to function properly. Even if we did get Rusty going, the switcher wasn't going to be very powerful, being A, an 040, and B, having a relatively small boiler, despite having a bell pair of airbox. This is without mentioning the possibility of the maximum boiler pressure for this locomotive to be only at 80 psi. So, not very effective at pulling a passenger train. Now, if you were going to ask, why not the 10-wheeler again? Well, unfortunately, this will not be the case this year. Thing was, though, if we were going to have a steam locomotive as the main attraction for Rudolph, it would have to be one that could haul a full consist. But then, in early July, Largo Central's treasurer, Mike, had acquired something from Illinois for us to work with. And boy, this was a treat. What you are looking at is a Milwaukee Road F7464 Hudson. There were only 6 of the full-size examples built between August and September of 1938 by the American Locomotive Company's plants at Schenectady, numbers 100 to 105. They were specifically designed for one job: haul the Hiawatha Express services, and haul them well. In which they did, and more so. They were built to supplement the 4A class 442 Atlantics on longer trains. But they proved their worth on the high-speed runs heading into Chicago. In fact, many of them were clocked above 100 miles an hour. In fact, a test run in the late 30s with number 100 was recorded at speeds around 125 miles an hour. Meaning that these engines could go as fast as a Gresley A4 Pacific. And maybe even faster. However, they were also regarded by a different measure of speed. Scheduled speed between stops. In fact, one resource was quoted stating that a scheduled train left Milwaukee 20 minutes late on a 75-minute schedule, yet it arrived on time in Chicago Union Station 55 minutes later, making up the 20 minutes that it had lost on its departure. Now that is impressive. Keep in mind, these were timetabled runs, not once-in-a-lifetime sprints. Striking, powerful, and relatively easy to maintain, they proved to be one of the most popular streamlined locomotives in the USA. However, they were built at a time when diesel traction was becoming popular, and after World War II, the Milwaukee Road was starting to favor dieselization of their Hiawatha services. Retirement of the Hudsons came as early as November of 1949, with the prototype, number 100, barely lasting 11 years in service. The rest followed until August of 1951. By then, all of them were gone. None of the F7 Hudsons survived the cutter's torch, but their legacy continues to live to this day, and it didn't stop people from building them, albeit at 1/8 scale. The Hiawatha Hudson you see here was built in 2001 by John H. Sweeney, and shipped out to an individual local to the Illinois Live Steamers, based in Lockport. In fact, his locomotive was the star of 3 separate Steam Channel videos in 2012. The previous owner, however, didn't run the F7 Hudson very often, and it ended up languishing in his garage for several years. Fortunately, the locomotive was purchased by Mike for Largo Central Railroad Steam Committee, and in doing so, became one of the first new members involved in the program. Joining him would be Rebecca, who was involved in the project of bringing the Hiawatha Hudson back to life, along with me, Santino,
The other one that I had.
and Dominic.
These are fittings for the cars.
The whole journey started with an initial appraisal. This is an inspection of the locomotive to see what exactly we managed to get our hands on. The casing had already been taken off after it was delivered to the workshop, so we went through all the valves and manifolds, as well as finding out which valve was to what. The previous owner was very generous and lent us several photographs of the engine as it was being built by Sweeney, including images of certain components. He even gave us a guide to the boiler backhead, numbering off what valve does what. Now, one may ask, how do you check for leaks in the steam pipes of a locomotive? Luckily for us, there was an air fitting on the fireman's side of the cab area that could fit an air hose.
There it is.
In order to let the air go through all the steam pipes, the center manifold is opened up. This allows us to safely test for leaks without having to steam the engine up.
Feel it here. It's right here. It's right here.
We got it's a working blower. So that,
You don't need a fan.
yeah,
You hook up the house there. Yeah, so that's literally
That'll-
fire it up.
yeah, hook that up. It's basically an artificial blower.
That's one strong blower.
Oh yeah. Gotta be strong for that draft. Big boiler, big firebox. Right away, we noticed a couple valves that were hard to open. In fact, one valve for the cutoff for the automatic propane feed was missing. Fortunately, the previous owner also supplied us with spare manifold components and fittings, so a replacement was fitted. The whistle valve was also discovered to be leaking as a result of worn packing. Luckily, this would not end up in a container submerged in white vinegar like the rest of the sticky valves. What was unique to this engine was the usage of power reverse gear. However, upon initial testing of this gear, we discovered that the valve was sticky, amongst other things. So what we discovered was that this reverser rod had bent due to being swung up forward of this knuckle right here. So, moving on, I noticed something underneath the locomotive that caught my attention. The rear driving axle and the rear axle of the rear trailing truck had cogs fitted to them. It had occurred to me that these might have been connected together for the rear trailing wheel set to act as a makeshift booster. Interestingly, the previous owner also had some spec drawings of the locomotive, which showed that the F7 Hudsons were never equipped with Franklin boosters. But at a later date, Santino found this photo which confirmed everything. Here's a photo of the chain hooked up to the rear driving wheel to the booster wheel at the very back. Very cool. However, I'm wondering why it wasn't kept on, why it was detached from the mechanism later on. Very possibly mission failure, as Rebecca just stated. Meanwhile, back to the appraisal date. Rebecca had decided to remove the check valves on the injectors. This proved to be difficult on the fireman's side, as due to an accumulation of rust, the bolts had seized up on the top portion of the valves. No matter how hard she tried to turn it, the bolt would not rotate free. At that point, there was only one option. Add a little heat to it. Well, looks like it worked somewhat. That trick worked, so she followed up on the other bolts, as well as the check valve for the axle pump. Fortunately, the driver's side check valves didn't give her much problem. While she was disassembling them, she instructed me and Santino to check the Nathan and DF7 lubricators for function. So, upon taking off the linkage for the mechanical lubricator and rocking it back and forth a few times, we discovered that there's no oil going out through the lubricator. So we're gonna have to clean that out, along with the oil that we already put in it. Upon noticing this, we took the lubricators off. Santino on the driver's side, and myself on the fireman's side, after Rebecca had removed the check valves on that side and moved on to the driver's side. As I was removing the fireman's side lubricator, Santino took the driver's side one and started cleaning it out with acetone. But during this process, he then discovered why the lubricator wasn't functioning. There's a linkage that is inside the lubricator itself that thins the oil out into the cylinders and glands. So what was happening was that part was not attached to this threaded portion on the linkage right here. So with it detached from the linkage, you don't have any oil going through the system at all. The main problem now is that we need to get that linkage. We need to get that linkage back onto the stem inside the lubricator.
And it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is a pain. It is quite a pain in the neck to get reattached because you need tweezers. And as of recording this, we don't have any in shop. So, yeah. The fireman's side also had this exact same issue. So all these containers are for various different connections and linkages and stuff for the Hiawatha. This big one right here is for the mechanical lubricator on the engine, on the driver's side of the engine. They're all filled up with white vinegar. We'll let them sit for a day, and hopefully by the time morning comes around tomorrow, maybe it'll be longer than that, probably a little longer than that. Hopefully they'll be all cleared out of all the gunk and residue that's getting inside of them, especially with the mechanical lubricator. And that's just for only one. That's only for one of the mechanical lubricators. Santino is still over there.
Hi.
Cleaning out the other one that I had.
So much fun.
Cleaning out the other one that I had taken out.
Kids, don't try this at home.
In terms of the other stuff, Rebecca has also removed most of the fittings for what's inside. I mean, most of those boxes with white vinegar are most of the fittings that go onto the steam portions of the locomotive. As you can see, certain valves have been taken off the boiler backhead, including a lot of the valves from the steam stuff. So those will soak in white vinegar. Those are soaking in white vinegar. In a few hours, they should be rid of all the nasty stuff. The next Friday, we took the vinegar-soaked parts out of the Tupperwares and gave them a nice cleaning in a half water, half baking soda mix. The vinegar did its job of removing the particles, and some of it definitely looked like it went through hell. Ah, black valve. Oh my lord. Look at how much rust is in that.
Wait, the camera. This is the clock valve. This is the check valve on, I think, the fireman's side.
That's a lot of buildup. Oh, perfect. One thing to note about the blowdown valves, they have a letter stamped on the valve itself in order to identify which side they go.
Yes.
So. Plates for maintainability. Once all the parts were cleaned, Rebecca could then reassemble the vacuum. That one right there is for
This is to drain this chamber.
the water glass.
No, this
Oh, no,
isn't
the
the water glass. This
Oh,
is
no.
like a secondary turret.
Oh, okay.
Except there's no cutout.
Okay, so what's the issue with this?
It's just see how smooth this one is by comparison. At least when my hands aren't wet.
I mean, I personally, since
Is
it's,
it smooth enough?
for me, yes.
Okay.
It's just a worm on this.
The injectors and blowdown valves got the same treatment, and after a new RTV sealant was applied, without making a mess of it, that is.
Note to self, don't put TCV all over the blow down valve, or you get kicked outside and you have to clean it for hours.
The injectors and blowdown valves were reattached to the engine. It was also that time where the reverser rod's weld finally broke free.
Okay.
So that'd have to be taken care of another time.
That's the thing you just did. Oh, yep. Oh, that's a really shitty weld. No wonder it failed.
Now, for context, that portion right there was had failed long before this. It was a matter of time when that weld would finally.
It broke last week.
Well, technically, it started its rapid disassembly on Monday.
It's a 1/4 inch rod and there was about a 32nd of an inch of penetration.
Not very much in the grand scheme of things. This was also a good opportunity to start the new cylinder cocks. Rebecca would put in a new pipe into the drain cocks at a later date. In between days 2 and 3, Rebecca had filled up the boiler with half water, half white vinegar, and let it sit for a week to break down the particles inside the boiler. The day before Friday, she started to drain it out, and was met with deposits of limescale and calcium. In other words, boiler sludge. It turned out that the locomotive had been put away wet, aka there was still some water left inside the boiler, and I was the one that was to help her clean the rest of it out of the lower firebox the next day.
They both were yeah, that we should. Ready?
Yeah, go for it.
That water leg, I don't know if it's just that I pushed all the crap from here around, but I don't think I did. But there was just a lot of crap freed up there on that side.
I'm liking this a lot better. Now there's not enough. Now there's not any gunk in the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's as clean as that's getting. So,
Right.
sorry to trigger you. I wish I alone.
That, however, was not the most difficult part of that day. Oh yes, the Nathan lubricators were still giving us grief, as the linkages were not staying on the crank. Worst of all, no oil was pumping out of the lubricator. What was discovered in all of this was that A, the ball bearings inside some of the valves had been lost, and B, they were not very suited for disassembly. If you took out the piston for the pump, you had to replace the packing. Before all the stuff with the lubricators occurred, though, Rebecca had found out why the power reverse was sticking.
So when I opened it up, it was all muddy in there, and then I got that out, and it was just covered in like chip away rust. And then we got that in, and all that stuff just flaked off of it.
Yeah. The lubricators took up the rest of that night, though. So after we had gotten as much as we could done, we called it the day and closed up shop.
But I had the whole time back.
Work continued on the Sunday and Labor Day Monday, though I wasn't present for it. The biggest breakthrough on both those days, though, was the reassembly of the compressor bell mount and the power reverser. First, Rebecca re-welded the rod back together while the valve was taken out of its bath of white vinegar, cleaned, and set back into the piston. Now it moves a lot more freely. The mount for the two Westinghouse compressors and bell was in pieces, but Rebecca also took the welding tool to the mount and soon reattached the bell to its framework. However, Friday turned out to be too busy for us to go to the shop, as the day afterwards was the public run and weekend. But before we could finish up the public run on Sunday, the weather turned to Florida. Yeah, rain. So we met back at the shop to continue work on the Hudson. The biggest accomplishment mechanics-wise, though, today we got the power reverse working. After dealing with the lubricators, for hopefully the final time, I was then tasked with reassembling the power reverser's linkages. Once that was done, we hooked it up to air, waited until it was up to pressure, and gave it a test. And it worked. Albeit for one issue. That weird hiss you are listening to, which sounds like an old World War II radio on the footage, is a faulty seal in the valve. There was a gasket fitted in there, but it wasn't cut properly.
That's weird. I've never felt a reverser like this before.
So once the boiler was drained of the air pressure, Rebecca went and put some RTV sealant on the valve to set for the next few days.
Okay, Rebecca, that's a little weird. Sure.
It was at that point when we finally decided to fasten the dome back to the boiler. Okay. The low margin right here is damaged, so that's not going to touch until a later date. So. Meanwhile, another Largo Central volunteer showed up. Our good friend Kevin. This allowed us to move on to another important step.
Oh my.
In order to test out the electrical components on the locomotive, i.e. the front headlight,
Let's fold these up.
we needed to fit the casing onto the locomotive. So we went next door to the machine shop, where a familiar sight was located, with new crossheads, slide bars, and expansion links in the process of being fitted. Oh yeah, the F7's tender and casing was also in the shop. So we rolled the cart that they were on out to the barnyard door of the tool shop and over into position outside of the workshop. Despite 2 people being able to carry the steel casing, it required 4 of us to carefully maneuver it in position so we could fit it above the boiler.
Got it? Okay. We're gonna have to shift backwards. 1, 2, 3, and down. Okay.
Beautiful.
We're good over here. We're in here.
I wonder how long it's gonna
When the locomotive was built, it had a functioning dynamo. However, we elected not to use the dynamo. Oh, and speaking of the initial testing of the lights, yes, the lamp does work. But the marker lamps were never fitted with lights, though, so they would have to be outfitted with LEDs later. Same with the front light, which doing that saves on battery life.
It's only the driver's side though. The fireman's side does not open up.
And also,
Okay, can't get it moving, but it opens. So does the front portion where the lubricators are. It opens up too, so you can access that.
after sorting the loco end, we checked over the tender.
Deal with.
And this is bed liner, but what we gotta do is get something good for it to adhere to.
What is this?
That's the hand pump.
That's the hand. That's the hand pump.
Deceased.
Oh, no, it's not.
That would help Mark.
Ah, yes. That's what it's for. Okay, I saw that in there.
So this is gonna get sandblasted along with the other stuff. And then we need bed liner paint. Just on a touch-up basis, but we still need to do it. A lot of water.
To treat it so that deterioration would be halted, Rebecca sprayed phosphoric acid in many of the areas of rust to contain the buildup. However, the interior would need to be sandblasted and have a protective coat applied at a later date.
Yeah.
It also needed another injector hose, the fireman's side one to be specific, as it was missing on the tender. After putting the Hiawatha's tender back in the machine shop, we then moved on to something unrelated to the Hudson, but related to Largo Central Railroad, and the reason why Kevin was there in the first place.
Other panels in and lean them up against the
So, we're here now. We're taking a break from the Hiawatha. This is Kevin here. He works on Great Pirate Ship and he's having
These
a
trucks
break.
belong to the Soul Dash 9 unit, originally in Norfolk Southern colors.
You know, we put this thing
Not the
called
double one.
Loctite
This is a
on
single
there.
unit, Dash 9.
Nutballs.
It was getting repainted into a Veterans Memorial scheme, similar to the one the FEC did to one of their GP38s. The motor trucks were getting a clean and repainting. A few hours after, and after getting some materials needed for the Hiawatha, we took the casing back off of the locomotive to have a better go at the electronics at a later date, placing it inside the Tinker Room, also known as the Cool Room, because it has air conditioning in it.
Stop.
on the frame. Yep.
Back up. Kevin, walk it out in your direction.
Watch for the light.
Okay. You're really on out.
Oh,
Oh, I forgot about that.
what was that?
Oh, that's a steam. That's a sand dome cover.
Oh,
Do we want to move this container more out?
I
Mark, can you see if we can have Rebecca pull that out?
Yeah,
Are we turning? We're just gonna put it right in here.
down out there.
Walk it. Yeah, sure.
Probably gonna need a stand, foot stand in order to get up to that light.
This? Oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
You can.
Oh, you can reach it.
There's other wires here.
Hello.
Probably for the marker lights.
Probably, but I don't know how they get. Oh, there's the holes.
Yeah.
That's good. But we will follow up that on another day, as I have expended the runtime on this particular video. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.
Okay. And we gotta get a cab line in